From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
After I had kids, I realized I didn't like the way my body was.
Lots of people making a resolution to lose weight, some help to get you moving. And the U.S. working on two big trade fronts, China and Japan.
It's becoming critically more important now that the new TPP is in place.
And the big story, we continue to follow the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, finally over for now.
I am very proud to announce today that we have reached a deal to end the shutdown and reopen the federal government.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. President Trump announcing on Friday he's reached a tentative deal to reopen the government for 3 weeks, but the deal leaves his more than $5 billion request for a wall along the Mexican border for later. The president saying he would sign a short-term funding bill that would reopen the government after being partially closed for 35 days. The president thanking federal workers, promising them they will receive their back pay very quickly or as soon as possible. President Trump saying the deal includes a commitment for Congress to hold a conference on Homeland Security appropriations. Border security would be negotiated during that 3-week period, and he says barriers must be part of the final border security plan.
If we don't get a fair deal from Congress, the government will either shut down on February 15th again, or I will use the powers afforded to me under the laws and the Constitution of the United States to address this emergency. We will have great security.
800,000 federal workers were furloughed or worked for free during that time. That includes 9,700 FSA employees who were called back to work last week, along with thousands of USDA workers. FSA offices reopened around the nation last week, and along with having more time to file for the market facilitation program, other deadlines have been extended. Now take a look at your screen. The new deadline for these programs is February 14th. That includes the final acreage report date that would have fallen between the end of last month and January 2nd. February 14th is also the new deadline for the Emergency Conservation Program and for the Livestock Forage Program and Livestock Indemnity Program. Marketing assistance loans can be repaid, fortified, or settled also through February 14th. For a full list, head to our website, agday.com, and click on links. Another big story we're following, a group including Chinese deputy ministers expected to arrive in Washington today. They will help pave the way for the next round of trade talks between Vice Premier Liu He and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. Those talks scheduled to take place Wednesday and Thursday, but President Trump's outside advisor on China says he doesn't expect a breakthrough in those trade talks in the near term. Michael Pillsbury telling CNBC he expects the meeting to end without a trade deal, but he remains optimistic about a deal being reached in the longer term. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow a little more optimistic about the upcoming meeting. He's also responding to reports the U.S. had turned down an offer by Chinese trade officials to meet in Washington last week, citing the lack of progress on issues like intellectual property rights.
Look, I know the Vice Premier quite well. I know his top deputies quite well. They're real smart people. They are bringing the authority of President Xi following the talks in Beijing, and we're all looking forward to it. My only point on the other matter was you can't cancel a meeting that was never scheduled, and I don't know how that got out.
The U.S. has set a March 2nd deadline for negotiators to make a deal happen. If there's no deal, the president has said tariffs will increase on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods. And new customs data showing the trade war still hitting U.S. agriculture hard. China's soybean imports from the U.S. plunging a whopping 99% in December. Now, last month, China only imported one cargo of U.S. soybeans, about 69,000 metric tons. Instead, it bought 4.3 million metric tons from Brazil. Now, for the whole year, China imported from the U.S. about 16.6 million tons, about half of what it purchased in 2017. And Chinese imports of all U.S. pork products were down 55% to about 263,000 metric tons last year. Pork offal imports from the U.S. plunged 58%. And a report from Ag Economic Insights says U.S. farmers may start shifting away from soybeans. Brent Gloy telling Farm Journal's Sonia Begeman it's likely soybean acreage will decline in the U.S. He says the shift will likely come from the states historically among the highest in production. There's word of panic slaughtering and tightening supplies in China amid efforts to contain African swine fever. A Rural China Economic and Policy Group is attributing this to a local researcher, saying that despite assurances the disease is under control, they report arrests of farmers trying to sell dead pigs for processing. Analysts were also told that some large-scale farms are panic slaughtering animals or cutting back production dramatically. Sow slaughter is on the rise, and some farms are selling pigs early and at lower weights. The National Bureau of Statistics reported that the swine inventory at the end of 2018 was 428 million head, down 3% from 2017. Now, China isn't the only trade deal in the works. Japan discussions are underway, but that country isn't waiting on the U.S. It has another free trade deal without the U.S. that goes into effect this week. Betsy Gibbon joins us now with more. Betsy.
That's right, Clinton. That deal is between Japan and the European Union. And here at home, both USDA and USTR say a bilateral deal with Japan is high on the priority list. But Japan is not waiting around. During the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe touting the benefits of two recent mega deals in trade, TPP-11 and now with the EU.
The entire world should benefit from the economies and efficiencies these two mega deals will bring about.
As Japan pursues these new modern trade agreements, the U.S. is falling behind. Economists say one of the biggest examples is the current tariff disadvantage for U.S. beef.
We went from a tariff disparity of 12.5%, 13% to now we're going to see a tariff disparity work out to 30-some% difference between U.S. tariff and Australian tariff. It's becoming critically more important now that the new TPP is in place.
But one geopolitical strategist believes Japan might be forced to make a deal with the U.S., and it may be this year.
Japan is a country that is utterly dependent upon global commerce for its economic wherewithal, particularly when it comes to energy imports. And if we're moving into a world where the United States is no longer providing maritime security, it is critical for Tokyo to have a positive relationship with the United States. And if the United States wants a bilateral deal, the Japanese are going to take whatever deal they can get in order to keep the United States on their good side. Because the option is to not have electricity.
Zion believes Japan needs the United States because it's not the political force it used to be, especially with agriculture.
All right, thanks, Betsy. The cold weather leading to some pretty cool scenes across the country, as meteorologist Mike Hoffman shows us today's crop comments. Mike?
Thanks, Clinton. This is a pretty cool shot shared with us on Twitter by Troy Hadrick in Fulton, South Dakota. If you look closely, you can see a couple of sundogs in the photo, both to the left and to the right of the sun. Sundogs are caused by the refraction of sunlight by ice crystals in the atmosphere. They're best viewed when the sun is near the horizon. Very cool indeed, and obviously it looks a little cold there as well. Well, here's a look at the drought monitor real quick. It's still pretty dry out west, also southeast Florida. Other than that, no real issues east of the Continental Divide. We'll have your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
No government reports lately means no information important to producers. So what do? Some advice next. And later, some advice that might get you up off the couch and moving. Coming up in the country.
AgDay, brought to you by Precision Planting, provider of practical and effective precision ag technologies to help make farmers smarter every season. Learn more at precisionplanting.com.
And agribusiness, weather in South America is leaning slightly positive, helping soybeans, but the market remains in a tug of war over trade negotiations between the U.S. and China. More from the CME.
Now the hogs were lower again, and really a lot more than we expected. Those weaker cash bids just kind of reflect the sentiment of the market, that even though fundamentally this African swine fever is still spreading across China, I know Hungary just announced its first case. The fact is that we have a little bit of swine fever fatigue, and kind of the sentiment or the optimism is waning somewhat. So with the market down as strong as it is, it just lets you know that there's a lot more volatility in the market, and certainly the pork market as well as soybeans are the two that have really taken it on the chin with the U.S.-China trade war. And with no movement there, it's really difficult for anyone to get ahead of steam and step into the market. That's all from the floor at the CME Group. Here in Chicago, I'm Virginia McGathy.
We're at Top Producer Summit, caught up with Matt Bennett, Bennett Consulting. Matt, as we start to talk about 2019, one thing that we've already missed is a big January report from USDA. What do you think was in that report? Do we have any indicators?
I think due to the way that the fall kind of played out, I don't think there's any question that the yields were probably going to come down just a little bit more yet. Okay. Given the kind of demand that we've got, especially with corn, you start to take the yield down a whole lot more, and you're starting to get into a level where your carryout could get down to 1.7, even below. Sure. And so I think we missed out, if you will, on a fairly friendly report. How friendly would the soybean report have been? Well, from a supply standpoint, I do think you would have scaled back just a little bit more yet, because all the late harvested beans certainly took somewhat of a yield hit. But as far as the demand perspective goes with beans, and we know world supply is rather large, I'm not sure that it would have been super friendly, but I think it would have followed along with the corn market.
Yeah. So do you think that we've already missed that? We're moving through January now. How does that impact us as we kind of move to start making planning decisions this spring?
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing is I think we would have gotten a nice bump there. It would have given us a chance to maybe catch up on some sales, make the initial 2019 sale, if you will. Sure. And so if we go into the spring planning time frame without that information, I think one thing that it's going to do is it's going to take a potential bullish bump, if you will, kind of out of the mix. And so I don't think that you look at a real friendly market. I think corn's supportive because everybody knows supply and demand balance sheet in the U.S. is tight. I just don't think they know exactly how tight it is. So what are producers going to do on this acreage? Well, the fall that we already talked about is going to make it tough for them to be able to get in, do spring tillage, if you will, and be able to get the kind of work done they need to go back to corn. So I think you're going to need a really good price bump to get us to do things like that, which is deep spring tillage, and that typically doesn't work for a lot of us.
Right, and doesn't always drive more corn acres either, right?
Absolutely.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on it. Thank you, Matt, for being here. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
For advice on the best way to be profitable on your farm, contact Matt at 217-273-1133. Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Your meteorologist Mike Hoffman with the rainfall over the last week, and Mike, pretty much all of that to the east.
In the southeast again.
Absolutely.
They had a very wet fall, still getting some as we head into winter. Actually, I probably should have said through winter, since we're halfway through winter already. The first part just didn't seem that cold. For most of us anyway. There's the moisture in the southeast. We also have a little bit southwestern Oregon, especially in the northwestern portions, and some decent amounts from that one storm. A lot of this was snow and ice, melted down obviously. Gave folks in New England an inch or more in places, but you can see the most widespread area of the heavier rain with 1 to 2 inch amounts in general. A few spots, it appears from our radar estimates, did see 3 or 4 inches there, parts of southeastern Mississippi and southwestern Alabama. All right, taking a look at the jet stream, and this is what everybody's going to be talking about this week. We started talking about this late last week, and this is basically the polar vortex right there. It's about as far south as I've ever seen it, into the northern portions of the Great Lakes. By Wednesday, that is a direct shot of Arctic air right off the Arctic Circle all the way down through the eastern 2/3 of the country, and that will take very cold conditions all the way down into South Texas and South Florida. At least cold relatively to what you normally see for this time of the year. Now that obviously lets up. It's hard to keep the air that cold for that long, but the pattern is still such that we'll see another shot coming early the following week, it looks like, coming into the northern plains and northern Rockies and moving southeast from there. So we're in that pattern, I think, at least through February, for very cold conditions in the eastern 2/3 of the country. So temperatures this week, very easy forecast. East of the Continental Divide, colder than normal, much below normal right in the center of this. I mean, there are going to be some temperatures that perhaps break all-time records in a few spots. There's going to be a whole bunch of daily records set for both cold highs and overnight lows. Above normal then, as you can see in the western portions of the country. Precipitation this week above normal, southeast and east coast. From just west of the Great Lakes to the Continental Divide, below normal, above normal in the far west. All right, 30-day outlook for temperatures. There it is, below normal most of the eastern 2/3, much below right through the Great Lakes, central Mississippi. And you can see above normal Pacific Northwest. 30-day outlook, precipitation, northern plains, southeast, above normal from about Chicago southwestward, below normal. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We'll head to Las Vegas, Nevada. First of all, partly sunny, a mild afternoon, high of 68. International Falls, very cold, a bit of snow, high -5, low -26. And Miami, Florida, mix of sunshine and clouds, high temperature up to around 71.
Coming up, Machinery Pete finding a new deal out there for you.
Low-hour loader tractors, about the hottest thing in the used market right now, folks. Stay tuned, we'll discuss.
All in a Row, a new resource for crop and farm management information, is brought to you by Farm Journal and Valent USA.
Machinery Pete seeing some intense bidding when it comes to one particular item this week.
Good condition, low-hour loader tractors. Folks, that's maybe the biggest hot spot in the current used farm equipment market. And I got another up-close look at this truth last week when I was down in North Carolina. We were down there filming a farm auction for our Machinery Pete TV show. And this was the farm estate sale for Ronnie Askew, and it was in northeast North Carolina. Now Ronnie had a really nice line of equipment, not really a big line, but just really clean stuff. He had a John Deere 8260R tractor, 1,750 hours on it, and that brought $137,000, very strong price. But I thought the hottest item on the sale last week was this tractor, a John Deere 7230 Premium, 1,229 hours on it, sold with a John Deere 741 loader, and it went for $79,000. Now folks, coming into the sale last week, the average auction price on the previous 13 John Deere 7230s I had seen sold at auction was $61,345. Now the day before this auction last week, a sale by our friends at Sullivan Auctioneers up in west central Illinois. This Zetter 9040 tractor with a loader and 1,411 hours on it sold for $30,000. Now we posted a YouTube video of this tractor selling, and if you watch the bidding, folks, from $25,000 up to $30,000, you can tell how intense that buyer demand was, again, for a good condition, low-houred used loader tractor.
Did you spend some time on the couch this weekend? How even a little movement can make all the difference when it comes to your health. Next.
AgDay, brought to you by Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers. They don't just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize it, so crops deliver the max in return. Learn more at maxinmaxout.com.
This is the case for many of us. We spend too much time on the couch. Now, there's data to back it up. About 80% of U.S. teens and adults are not active enough. That's according to a new report issued by the federal government. Teresa Snow with the University of Missouri explains why it may be easier than you think to get moving.
Wow, that's amazing, Donna.
These days, Donna Fox is a CrossFit regular, but her workout didn't always involve heavy weights and squats.
After I had kids, I realized I didn't like the way my body was. I was frustrated with myself, and I started to work out.
Just do a couple bad ones.
And you can take that first step anywhere.
We all are busy. I get that, right? And it is tough to get to the gym and carve out that extra time to do it. But can you take the stairs a little more? Can you park a little further away? You should feel it like right here.
Steve Ball is a professor in the Department of Nutrition and Exercise Physiology in the MU School of Medicine. He says while squats are great, you don't have to start there.
Going for a walk, walking the dog, doing your own household chores, raking the leaves is a great exercise.
The new federal government guidelines for exercise and physical activity say adults should still aim for at least 150 minutes or 2.5 hours of moderate intensity activity each week. But now there's a change. All activity now counts toward these goals, not just 10-minute bouts of intentional exercise.
The new guidelines are clear that anything counts, anytime, anywhere, by any means.
Ball recommends working with a professional to set realistic fitness goals and working out with a partner or a group. It's something Donna knows the benefit of firsthand.
I've met a lot of people, nice people, encouraging people, so that makes it even extra special.
And it's making her stronger, mentally and physically. From the University of Missouri, I'm Teresa Snow.
Thanks, Teresa. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.